thank you for allowing me to be here, and it was great hearing the other speakers, and looking forward to hearing Arnie. It's always good to hear other speakers, whether I have that knowledge. We've put on seminars at Life Raft and Survival Equipment, and I had a Navy, or it's easy in the Navy rescue diver swimmer come, and I said to him, why are you here? And he says, I'm not too arrogant to think I can't learn something. So it's always good to be open-minded to other people and to gain that knowledge and maybe a better way of saying something. So I could talk about safety equipment all day. I could talk about these items. So I want to try to keep it to life jackets and maybe accessorizing a life jacket, and definitely maintaining a life jacket. So one thing that surprises me with people who own safety equipment is that they just own safety equipment. And a lot of people come to us and they don't know how to operate it. Never mind how to maintain it, but how to operate it or what to expect when something happens or how to use something. But a lot of safety equipment has pictograms on it. So a flare, for instance, which was talked about earlier, there are the steps right on there, and they're just in picture form. So easy to deploy a flare. But you should know how to do that before you need it. The other thing is a life raft. How to deploy a life raft. Most life rafts have some kind of pictogram on them that shows you what to do, and it's easy. Tie it off, throw it in, pull the cord, but they're on there. We welcome people to come to our shop in Tiverton to see their life raft open, and we service 1,500 to 2,000 rafts a year, and we get 20 people a year come to see it. So to know what to expect of your raft when you need it is definitely something we recommend doing. So if anybody has a life raft, I suggest bringing it in the winter, because we are extremely busy right now. But we always want to take the time to welcome people to our shop. It takes 15, 20 minutes, depending on how many questions you have. Open your life raft, know what to expect, and again, any knowledge you can gain is good knowledge. So with life jackets, everybody has those type 1s or type 2s down below that have gear on top of it. You're never going to wear them because they're boxy and they're big, and it takes away from the enjoyment of boating. Maybe some people do wear them because they make them for a reason, but mainly a lot of people's approach is, I have to have them. Here they are down below. I meet the requirements. And a lot of people do have inflatable life jackets. And as we were talking about this morning, we're pretty naturally buoyant. So we have a lot of water in our body, we have fat in our body, so we're about 92% buoyant. A life jacket just allows you to have just that little more buoyancy. So even a 15.5 pound of buoyancy life jacket is a decent little life jacket. You hardly know you're wearing it after a while, and you can get them in automatic or manual. We talked about earlier that an automatic life jacket, you get hit with a boom, you go in the water, it automatically goes off. So probably a better way to go. Some of the mechanisms that fire off life jackets are pretty inexpensive. So for example, we're going to get into the maintenance of a life jacket in a few minutes, but this little bobbin here, so it's actually, I had a couple pulled aside last night, I forgot them, but there's a white substance inside. It's like an aspirin. So as you take an aspirin, it dissolves. That's what happens. It gets wet, it dissolves, it allows the life jacket to go off. These cost $6, and you should replace them once a year. So again, we'll get into that. We'll get into that soon. But again, that's the inner workings of a life jacket. My point was, on the surface, people have safety equipment almost sometimes, honestly, to feel good about having safety equipment, or my wife is making me get the safety equipment. I know what I'm doing. But this will never happen to me syndrome, needs to be dispelled, because it does happen to you, and it can happen to you. So be prepared and be aware of your products and how they work. And it's okay not to know things. It's okay to come to someone like us and say, I don't understand how this works. We're maybe to a fault. we're really good at what we do. We offer great customer service, and this isn't about me promoting my company. It's about the people that I work with. We all care about what we do, and we want this to work, and we want it to work right, and we want you to be safe. And we care, again, to a fault. People say things like, you guys offer great service and don't ever lose that personal touch, because we all believe in what we do. Again, it sounds like I'm promoting, but it's just proving that we really care about what we do. So the point is, come down, and some of the newest devices that I'm going to talk about with the the AIS transponders, the emergency transponders that are out there. We'll hook them up in your life jacket if you're interested, if you want to come down. Again, it's okay not to know something, and to ask and to learn. And what I wanted to do was, I brought a life jacket here that I'm going to deploy as I'm wearing it. If you have life jackets, again, we'll talk about the maintenance in a minute. You can do your own maintenance. Some of them are harder to fold back in than others. It's spin locks. I don't do them. They're difficult to do because the certain folding procedures you have to do. But some life jackets practically fold themselves. So just with a simple bladder and some Velcro, it's easily folded. So my corny saying is, the best life jacket is the one you're going to wear. So when I thought about that yesterday, I said I should just bring some life jackets. I didn't necessarily bring them for anyone to buy anything or anything, just to, because I know we're not doing that, but just to show you that there's many different styles of life jackets. Some with harnesses, harness points, some without. So it's all a matter of what's the most comfortable, and then what features might be on a life jacket. So, for example, some life jackets come equipped with spray hoods, built-in lights, crotch strap, a built-in knife. You can buy accessories, pouches, so on and so forth. You can be all decked out, or you can get the simplest of life jacket again. So, putting on a life jacket, different life jackets get put on different ways, mostly like a suit jacket. But then there are different clips. There's different ways of attaching your light or connecting your life jacket. Spin lock here, they have a different couple clips. The newest models have metal, and now that's never going to come out. It's not going to break. It's not a buckle. Yes, these are inexpensive and they're lightweight, but they're buckles. After a couple of years, could break. So Spin lock really did a lot of their research and development, and now they're up to a 6D model, specifically designed with the feedback from their customers. So wearing a life jacket, again, this might be a little bulky for some people, but it has a built-in spray hood, it has a built-in light. It might not have those things on it now. This is just one of our demos. And then it's an automatic. Some life jackets can be both automatic or manual. So you can have an automatic and you can turn it into a manual if you prefer. And then some with a hydro mechanism. So in other words, you have to go in the water for this life jacket to go off. Looks like we have some friends. And we even sell dog life jackets. So the different mechanisms, so this mechanism, you have to go in the water. Under about 9 inches of water column, water rushes into this. You have to go in the water for this to work. you can make this a manual, and then it will not be Coast Guard approved if you did. But some vessels are wet vessels, so they're constantly getting wet, so you don't want to get the bobbin style, or there's another thing, a capsule style. And by the way, there are many rearm kits. I tell people if they call me that the best way of doing this is to send me a picture and we can talk about it, because there's pills and there's capsules and there's these and there's bobbins and there's different size pills, and it's on and on and on it goes with rearm kits. So know your life jacket, know what kind of life jacket you have and what kind of rearm kit you need, because if you're on board and you or someone goes overboard and needs to repack their life jacket, although they'll probably go down below because they don't want to do any more boating for the day, but you should have extra rearm kits for your life jackets. So definitely recommend having that. And probably shouldn't film this part of it, but I don't. We'll have vessels come in and they'll hand me 15 life jackets. They're life raft, they're SARTs, they're this, they're that, and they go, here, take care of all this. We don't have time, so service all this for us. But for individuals, you have 4, 5, 6 life jackets on. You can do them yourself. We'll be happy to do them for you. Be happy to show you how to do them. But for the most part, you can probably take care of this for yourself. We can tell you what you need and take care of it. And then you get an intimate idea of your life jacket. So, we've all worn life jackets, but have we gone to safety at sea seminars? Have we been in the pools? Have we ever inflated our life jackets? What I always recommend is for the season, in the beginning of the season, is to inflate your life jacket after you remove the cylinder, so you don't inadvertently set it off. Inflate your life jackets with the oral inflation tube and let them sit up for 2, 3, 4 hours, because it's a small bladder. So if it's going to leak, you're going to know. And it's better to have it leak on your table or your bench or your boat than to have it leaking when you're in the water and it's on. So make sure you check your life jackets before the season starts. And if you don't have inflatables, then, and you have the orange type 1s and 2s, make sure you just look at them real quick. Make sure they're not ripped, make sure they're accessible, make sure all the clips are intact, things like that. So just go over your life jacket, but go over all your safety equipment. So let's just do this. We're going to pull this, and so if you go in the water, it's an automatic. It should automatically go off. But you should always have the wherewithal of what to do if it didn't, because all this is mechanical. It's supposed to work, so it should work, especially if it's maintained. But if it doesn't work, how does it work? So I always recommend, if you're going to go in the water, you can, I know you're abandoning ship, you have to go in the water. Put your hand on the manual inflation, so you know exactly where it is, so you're not trying to freak. And there are different pulls. So here, the spin lock is designed to pull here from the side. They have ones that pull down here. As you can see, there's the pull here that will hang out at the bottom of the jacket. Mustang, for example, on the bottom of the jacket. So we're going to pull this, and I keep getting you all ready for straightening you along, and then I think of something else.
You look intimidated.
Yeah.
We have a medical doctor. Should you?
Yeah. Eventually, I'll do this. So I just keep thinking of different things to say before I do that. And then of course I just forgot what I was going to say. That's okay. So we're just going to get this over with. So give this a good pull. Oh, come on. All right. New. Can we edit this?
We'll get it in post.
I am going to beat Nick up when I get into work on Monday. All right, let this happen, Nick. What have you done to me, Nick? All right. So there we go. So demo life jacket, and you know you can see that if your life jacket starts getting you to, all right, let's just call it freak out. It's in your face. It's up. Maybe it's riding up on you a little bit. You take your oral inflation tube here, and this is the same way you would deflate it, but you invert the cap, and you can take a little air out of it. You can hear the air coming out of it now. So that could, you still have plenty of buoyancy, but maybe you know you're giving yourself a little more breathing room because now you have gone in the water. This isn't here inside, you know, monitored. You're out there. Seas are high. It's probably raining. Probably dark. It's probably cold. So you know you got to add in the element of nervousness. So always just know, you know, that here's your oral inflation tube. Invert the cap. You can push all the air out. And this is how you're going to end up. Deflating it in order to service it. So if you ever when you do your own maintenance on your life jacket, you know we have a compressor, but if you keep the compressor on it and you keep putting air into the oral inflation tube, you can blow the bladder up. So just be careful. I would suggest just doing it with your mouth. Just orally inflate it, and again, make sure it's a nice firm bladder. And then if it loses air, it's probably time to replace it. The life jackets typically, I would say, definitely probably going to last about 10 years. After 10 years, you know, you probably should replace them. But that's just sort of a rule of thumb that we have, that we see them. We see hundreds of them. They asked me recently how many life. We do about 800 to 1,000 life jackets a year. So 10 years is probably a pretty good mark. Yep.
Have you ever encountered a canister of gas that leaked? You don't speak of checking them. I just wondered.
Yep. So when you do the maintenance on your life jacket, or when we do the maintenance for the life jacket, the first thing I always suggest before you do anything is to remove your cylinder.
Yeah.
So your cylinder, you can't set it off if the cylinder isn't in it. So the cylinders, you have many different types, but they're mostly either 3/8 thread or 1/2-inch thread, and they're 33 to 38 grams. 38 grams. There are some of the soulless life jackets have 60-gram cylinders, and soulless life jackets have 2 cylinders on them. But for the most part, you know, this group will probably see just a standard life jacket. So the cylinders will last indefinitely. One of the questions I get often is, how often do I have to change my cylinder? You don't have to change the cylinder as long as it's not pitted, corroded, rusted, or empty. So you want to take a look at your cylinders. You know, I brought some so I can show you that, you know, this one's pretty rusted. And, you know, overall, to answer your question, if this was your question, I've never seen an empty cylinder that wasn't penetrated. They're all wet, but this could, you know, there's so much corrosion on this one, it could leak through. I've actually never seen it, but it's possible. But you definitely don't want to take the chance. You don't want this in here, because not only is a rusted cylinder bad for the cylinder, but also it can get on the actual life jacket itself, and then you get these rust spots on here that can easily leak. So that's one thing you've got to look out for is the cylinder. So on this one cylinder here, I have it's called a bayonet, and it has this little plastic piece on it. And that little plastic ring, I have broken them new. So if you have a type of life jacket that has the bayonet in it, just make sure that it turns a quarter turn. Just make sure you're careful with it, because you break that little thing. It's $13 for the cylinder. It's not a big deal, but those little things can break. So just be careful. I don't really like the bayonet because of that. So again, inside your life jacket, you remove the cylinder and you just orally inflate it through the oral inflation tube. Make sure you put the cap back on. There is a spring-loaded check valve inside, so when you are done blowing up, no air is going to come in it or come out of it, or shouldn't. So you put it up, make sure it stays firm for a couple hours, and then that's where you're going to replace some of the mechanisms. So it depends on what mechanism you have, depends on what you need. So like I sort of held up already, there are capsules, there are bobbins, there are these, the hydrostatic working ones, and those tend to be, the older ones have just a little pill, and so overall, there are many, but they seem to be, actually, Spinlock now has a gray elite capsule as opposed to the black capsule. So again, you just have to know what you have and what you need and what you should have if your life jacket goes off out at sea. So have a rearm kit. The other things to look at are, so this, some have a built-in spray hood like this one. So, you know, your first reaction in the water is to, oh, I'm cold. So you start breathing in water, not good to do. Some have a spray hood. Some you can actually buy a little spray hood for the side. Not a lot of life jackets have a built-in spray hood. Spinlock does. So then lights, there are different lights that come on life jackets. Our favorite is the Hemi light from ACR. It's small. Lasts 5 years. It has an internal battery in it. You can test it. You can turn it off, which is good. So you don't test it by pressing the test button. You actually cross the leads here, the water activated leads, because if you had it in your life jacket and you press up against something and it turns on and you don't know because it's inside and it turns off, you'll drain it and you won't have a battery or you know, a light source if you're in the water. So with Isaac talking today about the flares on the horizon, not being able to see flares, and then the mention of the handheld rescue flare. ACR just came out with a new rescue flare that takes the place of your flares, but having expired flares, especially the Solus on board, just reiterating what he said earlier, is such a great thing. But just strobes can really stand out, especially these high-powered strobes. So make sure that it's in date. If there's any batteries that need to be replaced, there are some units that have batteries. So make sure they're replaced. Make sure it's working. Make sure there's no broken plastic. Because if you're wearing your life jacket all the time, you know, you're pressing up against things. Things are happening. Make sure that light works. So doing this maintenance in the beginning of the season is definitely the way to go. And again, you can do that yourself. Make sure you have your components. Remove that cylinder, and that's pretty much it on your maintaining of your life jacket. So I wanted to also talk about the heading for or under my description today was man overboard equipment. Like, I could talk all day about that, so we only have a certain amount of time. So the one popular item that has come out, and I've been a man overboard device person since I've been with the company. I always wanted that device that works. When somebody goes overboard, how do I find that person? So they have all kinds of man overboard equipment that you can hopefully get to the person, like a man overboard module, life sling. I saw Ernie has this rescue line bag here. There are many products to get into the water to get to the person if it can get to the person, because as we all know, it's not going to happen on a nice, calm, non-windy day. It's going to happen when things are at their worst, of course. So there's been all kinds of products that have come out in order to seat that man overboard. But until the AIS system had come out, there really wasn't as good of a product as there is now. And there are a couple different ones. I don't want to just promote any one. There are a couple different AIS transponders. I try to say AIS emergency transponder because it's not like an onboard AIS, you know, you're sending and receiving, but it's a receiver, and your VHF radio, if it has internal AIS capability, can be a receiver for these as well. This topic can get kind of confusing once we start talking about a digital select calling, a digital select calling call. That can get confusing. So the first part of this is that it transmits an AIS to any boat, anytime that has an AIS receiver. About one, I like to say, they say 5 to 7 miles. I like to say 1 to 7 miles because, of course, conditions out there are what really helps or hinders the transmission. But within 2 minutes of this going off, it will send the coordinates of this to anybody with an AIS receiver. So if you have an AIS receiver, it'll show up as an incident. So a round circle with an X in it is typically what you'll see on your multifunctional display. A lot of people are testing these things at the dock. So if your multifunctional display goes off and there's a circle with an X in it, maybe some coordinates there, and some indication, some indicator as to what it is. It can come through as an MOB, it can come through as a SART, but know that that's the symbol for a man overboard. So if it happens at a dock, somebody's probably testing their equipment. If it happens in the middle of the ocean, it's probably something that you can help, provide help with. So like I said, the first part of it is that it will transmit AIS to anybody that has a receiver. So whether it's most people probably have a Class B AIS receiver, and also, like I said, if your VHF radio is hooked up to AIS, then the radio can receive that. So I always say, end of discussion, that's it, AIS, it works. The second part of this, the DSC calling part of this, if your VHF radio does not have built-in AIS, this can communicate with your VHF radio if you program your MMSI number into this. In this particular model here, and ACR has another one that's a little bigger, but this will transmit the DSC call. So what does that do? It gives you another source to receive a signal. So on the AIS on your radio, on your radio, it can receive the signal. Your radio could go off. Some radios will switch to the emergency channels, and some, and you can have an external alarm. So down below, this could signal people that there's a problem. So again, two faceted here. AIS will work on anybody's vessel in the area, no matter what. Hands down, that's it. End of discussion. The second part of it is it will send a DSC call to your VHF radio if you program your MMSI number into it. And we can keep all the questions too after, but because I know there's always questions, but yes, you can reprogram your MMSI number into this. And then if you have many of these in life jackets, you can name in your radio each MMSI number specific to this unit. So in other words, you can name the color of the position on the boat, you can name the position on the boat, you can put the person's name. If I had my whole setup, I could set one of these off and my VHF radio would say Brian on it. So that's something you can do. Again, two different things. So now when you put this onto and this truly, as I said before, when you have mechanical operation of your life jacket will most likely go off automatically because of the mechanisms that allow it to go off. This is truly mechanical. It's not water activated. And when you put this on your oral inflation tube, that's what that little clip is for. You put that on an oral inflation tube, and this wraps around a non-welded bladder. So when the bladder expands, it pulls on this, sliding that over and activating it. So a little antenna will pop up similar to this. A little antenna will pop up, and it'll start going off. And within 2 minutes, things start happening electronically. So again, knowing how to use your equipment, if you set this up right, it should go off, but if it doesn't, you need to know to pull on that. Because now, like I was saying earlier, we can deploy things to get to people, man overboard, module, life sling, we can deploy those things, and for the most part, hope the wind doesn't take this stuff away and the person can get to some kind of flotation. But these are telling you where the person is. It's a real valuable tool, and it definitely works. I had a guy come into our shop and said none of these work. So I took them and I went outside in the rain, I set them all off, I set up my little laptop, and they all worked. So there are test features on them. Some of the test features, you press the little test button and your VHF radio would indicate that it's connected on the DSC part of it. The biggest thing I always stress is to know your equipment and to know how your equipment works, and these things work in conjunction with your equipment, because this might work different on different manufacturers of equipment. So how does it work on yours, and what can you expect? So testing, the test button does give you some capabilities. I can't publicly say to set these off and see how they work, because then everybody's radios would start going off, and you've affected a lot of people, and then the harbor master's probably not happy either. He has his mask on, so I don't know if he's seething or smiling. But, so it's good equipment to have, and I love talking about this stuff. So if you have questions, like you were saying, I'm available. Just give me a call. I'll talk your ear off to the point where you say, yeah, give me 5 and leave me alone. So this one's a little bigger. It might not fit in some life jackets. This one is actually water activated, unlike that one, which is mechanically operated. The disadvantage is it does not have the Dsc calling part of it, but you tie your lanyard off to your life jacket and it floats in the water and actually can go off, and it's water activated. So this one is valuable in that way, that it's water activated, but again, a little bulkier, may not fit in some life jackets. But a unit that works nonetheless. I use both of these in my demo. And then you have PLBs. So personal locator beacons, as they're known, are basically mini EPIRBs. So they have some of the same features as an EPIRB or a PLB. They send a satellite, they send a code to a satellite, and because you registered these, there's a database that has all the information that you provided for them. So the only thing that's transmitting out of a PLB or an EPIRB is simply a 15-character ID code, but because you registered it with NOAA, they know who you are, they know everything that you told them. Who you are, the color of your boat, the length of your boat, all these good pieces of information that they can have to help, facilitate a rescue. So I always say an EPIRB and a PLB are global, and the AIS transponder is local. So if you have both the PLB and an AIS transponder, now you're transmitting globally and you're transmitting locally. But the PLBs, and these questions are always up for debate. Which one do I get? So the PLBs they're bigger, they're bulkier. So again, like this particular model, they might not fit in your life jacket. Like I said, Spinlock sells little pouches that attach nicely to their life jackets. You can always get a pouch that put in a knife and a flashlight and a PLB. The more that you're transmitting, the better, the more chances of you being saved. So having both is great. Now the question is going to be, is there one unit that has both? And that is always a question, and unfortunately right now there is not one that has both. From my understanding, because of COVID it's been delayed, but supposedly in 2021 ACR, which some people are familiar with the name of the manufacturer ACR, there's supposedly going to be a PLB and an AIS all in one. from my understanding, dual antennas, dual battery, so it's probably gonna be this, maybe bigger. But anyway, that's something that could be on the horizon. So I don't know when that'll come out, but it's possible that will be eventually available. So, you know, I definitely want to encourage, if you have a PLB or an EPIRB, please register it with NOAA. It's very important because you're just helping you ultimately. And I think that sort of would wrap up this little sort of section of safety.
Okay.
Thank you so much.